As Eddie mentioned, all 4 officers involved in George Floyd's death now have been charged. Derek Chauvin, the man who kneeled on Floyd's neck, had his 3rd-degree murder charge upgraded to 2nd degree, while the 3 other former officers involved were arrested and charged with aiding and abetting murder in the 2nd degree. That is a felony. Here is Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison speaking yesterday.
We are following the path of all of the evidence. Wherever it leads, we are investigating as quickly as we can because speed is important. We're also investigating as thoroughly as we can because being complete and thorough is critically important, but it takes time. The reason thoroughness is important is because every single link in the prosecutorial chain must be strong. It needs to be strong because trying this case will not be an easy thing. I say this not because we doubt our resources or our ability. In fact, we're confident in what we're doing. But history does show that there are clear challenges here.
Joining us now, legal analyst for NBC News and MSNBC, Maya Wiley, and state attorney for Palm Beach County in Florida, Dave Ehrenberg. Also with us, the host of MSNBC's Politics Nation and president of the National Action Network, Reverend Al Sharpton. Reverend Sharpton will be delivering the eulogy today in Minneapolis in a service honoring George Floyd. Other services include a Saturday memorial in North Carolina, where Floyd was born, and then a funeral on Tuesday in Houston, where George Floyd was raised. Good morning to you all. Maya, I want to start with you specifically on these charges being upgraded for Officer Chauvin from 3rd degree to 2nd degree murder. What is the distinction there?
Well, let's start with the distinction that many demonstrators and the family are interested in, which is possible 40 years versus 25. So it is a significantly more serious charge in terms of what Officer Chauvin will face if convicted. I think the second thing to understand here that's so important is it sends the right legal message to police officers that the actions, the conduct that we saw from Officer Chauvin can't just be thrown up to, I didn't mean it. I mean, legally speaking, the 3rd degree murder charge is, it was completely unintentional. And while it was terrible, it was depraved indifference for human life. At the 2nd degree level, there's more of an intent element. And the intent here, just to be clear, is not planning a murder out in advance. The intent here, and in particular the importance in this case, is aggravated assault. So I not planning out the murder in advance, but nonetheless it rising to a level of conduct that is so serious that it deserves the 2nd most serious murder charge there is on the books in the state of Minnesota.
Maya, I'm interested in your view on something I've heard from a lot of people, mostly people who are sympathetic to Attorney General Ellison and want to see charges and a conviction for Officer Chauvin, and that is the idea of overcharging, which is that if you elevate this to 2nd degree, the bar is raised and you give some wiggle room for a jury to acquit. Is that a concern for you all here at all?
Well, look. The thing about these cases, bringing criminal charges against police officers, is they're far too rare, and juries have been very, very, very difficult to extract convictions from, even with very, very strong evidence, because people want to believe the police. They want to believe that their intentions are good. They believe that they tell the truth. And the problem for us as a nation is that means people don't believe their lying eyes. In this case, the video is very powerful. It's very strong. It's one of the reasons that we have seen police officers, chiefs of police come out and publicly denounce this. That's rare in this country. It's very rare. And it's because of the evidence. That doesn't mean there's not risk. But remember that one of the things that happens in the process is there are lesser charges so that the jury can opt to convict on a lesser charge if it goes in that direction. But I think that the Attorney General did absolutely what was legally mandated in this case based on the evidence before us. And anything less anything less would have only reinforced, both for Black Americans, but for Americans of all races, that justice is not as blind as it needs to be because it sees blue and it treats it differently.
Dave Ehrenberg, you've prosecuted these type of cases. Why are they so difficult to earn convictions?
Joe, juries have a healthy respect for the law enforcement profession, and they don't generally like to convict cops of such serious offenses. But it's more than that. It's also the fact that the law gives a lot of deference to police officers in the line of duty. You can't Monday morning quarterback, according to the law, their decision making. You've got to put yourselves in their shoes at the time of the incident. You've got to look through their eyes through the prism of reasonableness. Now, that's the key, because that's why body cameras and the video here in the George Floyd case can be so powerful, because it can expose a lack of reasonableness. It can expose reckless conduct. It can expose intentional misconduct. It can expose a depraved mind. We had a case last year that received national attention, the case of Corey Jones. It was a subject of a Super Bowl ad where a Black motorist was killed on the side of the road, and the police officer lied to us. And the way we found out was because Corey Jones was on the phone with roadside assistance, which recorded his murder. And that's why we're able to get a conviction and 25 years in prison for this officer. But without that recording, there were only 2 people there that night, and one of them is dead, and we probably would not have been able to do justice for Corey.
Yeah. So, Reverend Al, how important is it? How important of a message is being sent to not only police officers, but to civilians across America when they see that the killing of an innocent Black man could lead to what would amount to a life sentence, 40 years in prison? And I say this after you and I have talked far too often about, whether it's about Trayvon Martin, a civilian, killed by a civilian and acquitted, or so many of these incidences where, as you always say, you look at the video and it looks like homicide, and then the cops basically say that the bad cops basically say, "Who are you going to believe, me or your lying eyes?" And all too often, it seems juries refuse to believe what they've seen.
I think it is important not only to punish the officer that has broken the law, but to affirm to the public that no one is above the law. It is important that we make it clear in this country that you will pay the price if you break the law, no matter who you are. And I think that clearly by these charges, it gives us the opening for that. The other thing I want to raise, and I've talked to the family last night preparing to do the eulogy today. I spoke at Corey Jones's funeral in Florida that was just referred to by Prosecutor Ehrenberg. I spoke at Michael Brown's funeral and Eric Garner's funeral. I did the eulogies that did not result, as Corey Jones's did, in convictions. It can go either way. But one thing that is interesting that our legal panel didn't bring up is I think that part of what we see open up here, Joe, by indicting all 4 now. I was very much involved at the forefront of the Admiral Louima case. When you have multiple police indicted and charged, the prosecutor usually tries to pressure one to become a witness on the others, particularly when you have videotape evidence there and say, you're going down anyway, you can help yourself. So you have the possibility now with 4 defendants of what happened in the Louima case. What convicted the main assailant in the Louima case was one of the policemen ended up testifying against his partners. And that could very well happen here, given how graphic and clear this videotape is.
Rev, I'm struck listening to you list all the eulogies you've spoken at in recent years, far too many, and you're preparing to speak at another memorial service, this one for George Floyd. The list is so long, and I think that every time one of these things happens, we all stop and say something has to change here. And maybe it does on the margins, maybe it does in that department. But do you feel like, given what we're seeing in the streets right now, given the outcry we're seeing from the American people, that something bigger happens now? Is this a bigger moment maybe than we've seen in the past? And if so, what does that mean? What does that look like? How do things change?
Out of all the years that I've been marching and protesting and doing eulogies and speeches, I'm more hopeful going to this service than I have been in a long time, because I've seen more Americans of different races and in different ages standing up together, marching together, raising their voices together, even standing in front of the White House, getting tear gassed, but that's only half the story. They came back the next day. And that makes me know that we're on the brink of real change, because it takes sometimes years of investing, what a lot of us did, before we see the return that it was not for nothing. And I believe that we're at a turning point here, and that's what my eulogy will be about this morning. Clearly, Joe and I are older Baptists, and there's an expression we repeat all the time: weeping may endure for a night, but joy is coming in the morning. If we can just hold out, not get into brick throwing, not get into divisiveness, I can see the sun beginning to rise on a new day of policing, which will be good for everyone, including police.
And all the people said, amen. Thank you so much, Rev. We greatly appreciate it, as always. And thank you for all you're doing for the Floyd family. I know it means so much to them. Maya, let me ask you, follow up on this moment that we're in. Reverend Al and I have talked over the past decade. When cases like this have come up, when black men are shot in the back as they're trying to peacefully, not peacefully, but trying to run away from police officers, and they're lumbering, the North Charleston case, or what's happened actually in Minneapolis before, or of course, all the discussion that came out after Ferguson. You know, over the past decade, especially since a lot of this has been picked up on camera phones, we've talked about the need of body cams for all police officers. We've talked about prosecutors that are independent of local law enforcement operations, because obviously the local prosecutor has to work with law enforcement officers, and there's just a closeness that may challenge independence. But I'm wondering, and here we are in 2020, Maya, and you know this so well because you've worked on the inside. What reforms in 2020 do we need to push forward to make sure we're not talking about this in 2025 and 2030?
That's an important question. And frankly, there is a very long list. One of the things that we're hearing from advocates, which I think is dead on, is we have to change the rules of engagement. And Representative Hakeem Jeffries from here in New York, at the request of Al Sharpton and the family of Eric Garner, introduced in 2015 a chokehold ban to make it a federal civil rights violation. That is one of the steps. New York City is now looking at criminalizing chokeholds. So literally taking away the discretion to engage in dangerous behavior that is dangerous to the lives of people that the police is coming in contact with. But the other thing that we are hearing are requests that really go to the core of what policing is in America. You know, one of the things that has not shifted in this country is that as we've watched crime drop 70% over the last 2 decades, and I am talking about violent crime, we have not seen a shift in what policing is and how it's done. Police are still out here acting as if we're in a war zone when we've had the lowest crime rates we've had in 30 years. And what people, and particularly demonstrators, are asking for is more resources to solve the underlying conditions that are creating problems in low-income communities in particular, and also more accountability and oversight of police when they engage in misconduct by departments themselves. So not just shifting the training, ensuring that there's actual discipline when there are violations, because what we know from social science is if you want to change the attitudes, you also have to change the behavior first. You change the behavior by creating consequences for bad behavior. And, the only last point I want to make about this, Chuck, that's so important is you have to do it because the culture has to shift within the departments. There is a phrase in the New York City Police Department that better to be tried by 12 than carried by 6. When we see these images, like we saw last night, of police officers using batons on peaceful protesters, it's because there is a culture that says our means can be violent because we need to protect ourselves from them. And it's that us, them that has to be broken down when we're not in those times anymore. And that culture only shifts when the rules of engagement change. The proposals are many, including the fact that police need to be problem solvers, not aggressors.
We'll see if any of those changes are implemented and if your suggestions are borne out. Maya Wiley and Dave Aronberg, great conversation. Thank you both for your perspective.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.